Hi, this is Sandra. What I want to do in this video is from my main screen I can select all the learners, and from there when I select one I'm going to have a button added onto this frame that when I click it, it's going to take the learner details from there, or take the learner objects that it will do in the background, and it's going to transfer that information onto the first frame. So to start off, go into my code. So I want to add on a button here to show the learner details. So I could add it under, I'm going to put it under the frame there. It might make it look a little bit easier, some setup. So pop on a button anywhere you think it looks best. So edit text is going to view learner details, and to give it a name there as well, or code name, right click, change variable name, btn view learner details, and OK. So I'm going to double click on that button. Now what I want to do is, from the table I can call get selected row, and it'll give me which row in the table is selected. And because I'm using a list, that corresponds to the item that that learner is, or the position that that learner is in the list. Now just looking back up through my code here, when this opens up, first of all, populate learner table method is called from the constructor, and that fills up a list of learners. Now I notice that it's a local variable in here, so what I'm going to do is make that a global variable. And what I do for that is I'm going to copy what I have selected there. I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to make it private, which I should have done with the DAO reference there as well. Private array list learner, list of learners, and semicolon. Okay, that when the constructor is called, it's going to create an instance of the DAO class. It's going to call populate table, and that's what will populate that list. So down here on line 45, I don't redeclare the array list. I just take out the data type and just say list of learners equals. So from the DAO get all learners. And now behind the button, what I'm going to do first of all is get which row is selected. So I'm going to declare a variable called row selected, and I get that value from the table. So table learners dot get selected row. Now get selected row, it will return a value hopefully between 0 and whatever number -1 that I have in the list. Get selected row, if there aren't any learners in the list, or for some reason it can't get that, it will return maybe -1. So what I'm going to do, or if the user hasn't selected a row but does press on the button, that variable won't have a value there. Well, it will, it might be -1. So what I'm going to say here, first of all, if row selected is under 0, I'm going to ask the user obviously hasn't selected a learner then, so I'm going to display a message to them, JOption pane .show message dialog, parent component this, the message, please select learner. Please select a learner. The title, no selection made. And the icon, so is it an error? I'll use information. So JOption pane .info information message. So that's just the icon that appears. Now, so if there isn't a row selected, that would be under 0, would be a negative number. Otherwise, they will have selected something. So just to test this out, I'm just going to do a printout of which row is selected, just so we can see that it works so far. Row selected, and concatenate onto that. Row selected. Okay, so run that. Now, when that opens up, to press the button to open up the second screen. So if I click the button and I haven't selected anyone in the list, please select learner. Okay. I click Mary there, view learner details, I have that printed out. See there down the bottom, row 3. So the first row is 0, 1, 2, 3. So that will correspond as well to the position in the list. So the next thing I'm going to do is get the learner from that position in the array list. And I'm going to assign that to a learner reference. I don't need that printed anymore. So I have a learner reference, learner, current learner. From the list which I made global there a second ago, just checking the name of it there, list of learners. So equals list of learners dot get from that list the index. So the index I have got on the first line in this method. So that would be row selected. And again, if I just wanted to test that out, just print out their current learner and concatenate onto that from the object I created there on the previous line, current learner. So it'll get the current learner from the position in the array list, and it'll print it out there down the bottom. So just very quickly to do that. And we have Mary Smith printed down there at the bottom. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to pass that learner object into the first frame. What I need for that is, I'm going behind the code there of my first frame, I need a constructor that's going to take a learner object. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in another constructor, public, so same name as the class, learner frame, and I'm going to have it take in a learner object. So learner, and this will be current learner again, or whatever name you want to give to it. Now I'm going to be calling this constructor directly from the second frame. So what I need to do is, like in the other constructor, make a call to init components to make sure that the buttons and labels and text fields and so on get set up on it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to populate, if I look back at my design, just to remind myself of the names, I'm going to populate that text field called text name with the learner's name, populate the address with the learner's address, txt address, and the spinner, SPNH. I'm going to populate those three things. So that's back to my source. So txt name dot set text, and the value is going to come from the other frame in that learner variable, in the reference to the learner object. So that will be .getName. And then the next one, txt address dot set text, and again from dot set text, and that will be from the object that was passed into this method, current learner.getAddress. And then finally, keep doing that. And finally the spinner, SPNH dot. Now, do we have a set value? Okay, that takes an object, so anything that is an object or a child of it. So current learner.getAge. Now, will it be okay with that? That gives me a primitive. Okay, so that gives me a primitive int, and set value takes in an object. But if you pass in a primitive where an object is expected, it'll automatically wrap it or convert it into an integer object. So that is okay there so far. Now, I think that should be it. Just test that out and make sure that that's okay. So once this opens up, I'm going to open up the second frame. Select a learner. Oh, I haven't put the code in to call it from the second frame, so of course that's not going to do anything there at the minute. Okay, so what I might do as well, if you decide to work on any other code on this, like maybe you're going to update the details in the database or do a delete, you might want to call this code over and over again. So what I'm going to do here is put in a private method underneath void called populate form. It doesn't take in any values, but I'm going to put those 3 lines in there that populate any fields that are on the form. And then from, I will need to pass down there the learner. So I'm going to call the populate form method. So it'll need that learner object passed down to it. So I'll put that in there. And now when I call populate form there, it's passed down the current learner, just in case I need to reuse any of that code. Okay. Now, and next bit then. So back to my view all learners, back behind the button here. So when I have the current learner, I want to pass it into the constructor of the other frame. So what I can do here, I can do 2 things. I can call the constructor, I can reinstantiate the frame and call the constructor this way. Or what I could have done is from the first frame, when it opened up the second frame, pass a reference across. Just thinking what would be the best thing to do. I'll show you this way. So I'm going to create a new. So new, the first frame I called new learner frame. Call the constructor that takes in a learner object and pass in current learner. There we go. And frames are invisible by default, so call.setVisible on that and make that true. Now there's a little issue here when I run this, but I'll just show you what to do there. it'll still have the first frame might be twice on the screen, so I'll get rid of that. Okay, so run that. Now again, I'm going to open up the second frame. So you can see that first frame is still there. Click on a learner, view learner details. So I've asked for a new instance of the frame. So that is one way of doing it. Now, so what I can do is the code behind select all learners, I can just make this frame invisible. Are you sure you want to exit? Yes. Okay, so see this a little bit of an issue there, so let's get rid of that. Now, on the first frame, back into my design, where I have select all learners. So that makes the second frame visible, and I can make this frame, its visible property, to false. Now that might cause other problems. I might be better off disposing of it. That might be a little bit of work for later, but I'll leave that and just see what happens here. But if you want, I'll let you kind of fix that yourselves. I'll fix this up myself there as well. So it might be a little bit more work involved. You can stay online and I'll work about it, or you can work on that yourselves. So now it is gone, and view learner details, and it's there. Okay, I was expecting a little bit of an issue, but that's okay. So on the first frame, when I select all learners, it's hiding. Oh, there's another little issue. It's hiding the first frame. And that's working okay. View learner details to go back again. But now I haven't hidden my view all learner frame. So what I need to do, that's the last thing that I will do. And I think that will fix that up then. So last thing, into design. So where I view all learner details, make the first frame visible, and this one set visible to false. Okay, last test, and hopefully that will be okay. Okay, so first frame is gone. I select somebody here, view learner details. Okay, that's working fine there. Yeah, and no issues there. Okay, so in this video, what I showed you was that calling on the table, you can call get selected row. It'll give you which index that row is at. And I'm using that to get the same index from the array list to get the learner. I take that learner object from the array list and I'm passing it into the constructor of the first frame. And in the constructor, I'm calling a method that puts the learner's name into that text field, the address into that text field, and their age into the spinner. And that is it. Thank you for listening.